Welcome to the Friday Night Drive podcast, South and West Edition. He's Shaw Sports Regional Editor, JT Pedelty. I'm Daily Chronicle Sports Editor, Eddie Carifio, and it is week 2 of the playoffs. And because it's playoff time, of course, we have Sam Ramirez right at the top. We're going to dive into a really good one, I think, right to start off here. And also we're going to have some really fun talk a little later on the three of us. I'm looking forward to this one, defending myself against the two of you guys about something. But anyway, Coal City, Dixon. See, I'm excited. Sam, how do you see this one shaking out? I feel like you flip a coin and that's going to be the winner of the game.
Guys, I work in Dixon, and there's a buzz in this town right now about the game Friday night, and I know people are excited. First of all, the fact it's a Friday night game. A lot of times when you play Friday night against a team that played Saturday, very, very rarely do you see a turnaround to a Friday night. But there's a buzz, guys, and this was the team that knocked Dixon out of the playoffs a year ago, 20-13, and that was a state quarterfinal game last year in 4A. So I know that people are excited, and this is going to be a big football game. And I'll tell you, Dixon, Coal City, you said it, you could almost flip a coin. This will be Dixon's biggest test since that week 2 loss to Byron. Dukes have had 6 shutout wins this year, and I think we're in for a treat Friday night at AC Bowers Field.
A quick note about what you said about the Friday games, which is this year there's a lot of those games where teams played on Saturday and are playing on Friday. This was one of them. I noticed a couple others. The one I noticed, obviously, most of all was Kaneland and Belvidere North. Both of those teams played Saturday. Both agreed to play on Friday. I actually asked the coach about it, Michael Ferguson in Kaneland, when I talked to him this week, and he said they just like playing on Friday nights. And, they played, and because they both played Saturday, it wasn't giving one team an advantage over the other. And plus, in their case, they had both just played last year against each other in the playoffs, so they figured why not play on Friday night. I know you said Dixon, Coal City was one of them. I think there were a couple others. It was really weird to see the amount of games that were on a Friday or on Saturday now playing Friday in week 2 this year. It's really weird.
Well, Eddie, I want to follow up with that. There's 11 Friday night games in the IHSA, and what's interesting about Dixon elected to play. Coal City wanted to play Saturday, and Dixon said, you know what? That's fine. We're going to play 7 o'clock Saturday night because the cross-country team is the heavy favorite to win a state championship down in Peoria. So there's a lot of fans who wanted to go down to Peoria to watch the cross-country team. And then I guess Coal City said, you know what? Friday night sounds good at 7 o'clock. So I was happy because who wants to see a Saturday night game? I think we'd rather see a Friday night game or a Saturday afternoon game. And that's how those two teams came to the decision to play a Friday night game at 7.
It may just be me, but it looks like there's a lot of Saturday night games this year too. That could just be because I'm stuck reading Saturday and I just saw like every game's at 6 and I'm just grumpy. But it seems like there's a lot of Saturday night games.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And one thing with all the Saturday evening games that really kind of has thrown me off is, one of the great benefits I think of playoff times. One of the things that makes it so fun for me is you get daytime games. Amazing. I think I say this every year this time. We have some amazing photographers that work for Friday Night Drive, and you unlock them when you give them natural sunlight on a football field. You just get some amazing photographs of these teams that they did great work all year, but you see some plays that you just would not see because of the lighting and whatnot. So that makes me sad, some of the night games, not to mention, like Eddie said, being stuck working late on Saturday nights. Never fun either when you compare it. But yeah, I hadn't heard that about the cross country, Sam. That kind of surprises me. I know Dixon has a really good cross country team. Morris, for example, has some. I've never really heard of cross country affecting football scheduling before. That's a new one on me.
Yeah, I'd never heard that either. But yeah, that's the main reason why Dixon wanted to play to Saturday. And guys, I tell you, Dixon, when it comes to cross country, a little cross country talk today. It's been, I believe, 17 years since they last won a state championship. And guys, there is a buzz even in this community about this boys cross country team. And they wanted to take a nice set of fans down to Peoria with them. So they thought, well, that would interfere with a 1 or 2 o'clock start time. So that's why they were going to play Saturday night. And in the end, nope, they're going to play Friday night.
My favorite slogan about cross country I read on someone's shirt at the state meet once was, your sport's punishment is our sport. I think that's phenomenal. That pretty much sums up my cross country feeling. So, Sam, Eddie, if I put you guys on the spot and I'll go first, who wins this game? Because I think you're right. I think it's a coin flip. I think it's really going to be one, it depends how the game script plays out. It might come down to who wins the coin toss that ends up getting the ball last, or which way the wind's blowing. You know, these two teams just look so balanced. If you made me make a pick, I think I'd go Coal City. They beat them last year in the playoffs, but I really think you'd be perfectly fine going Dixon too. Sam, Eddie, who you guys like?
Well, just really quick, there was a point I wanted to make where you guys were talking about the cross country and Dixon wanting to be down there. I think it actually speaks to the culture they're trying to build or have in Dixon, because I covered the volleyball game where Dixon lost to Sycamore, the regional final last week, and the student section was completely filled with football players.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually got a warning. I don't know what they said or what they did, but they actually got a warning at one point.
Yep.
Coaches were there with the team. So it is apparently something that they're doing in Dixon and going out and supporting all the other programs. So that's always good to see that when, you know, the football team and the other teams are going down to Peoria or out to Rochelle or whatever it is. So it's nice to see that level of support, camaraderie, in spirit, if that's, you know, indeed what is going on. Now, as for that was a nice little stall. I hope you don't mind.
Give us some time to think about our answer.
Because, I mean, I know Coal City's probably like, oh God, like if you had to say the favorite or, you know, but I really like Dixon in this one. I can't really explain on it. I think it's a little bit of the chip on their shoulder. I think it's a little bit playing at home. I think you mix that stuff up. I think it's a really close, whoever gets the ball last win type of game. And I think that'll be Dixon.
You know, Sterling's 10 minutes down the road from Dixon. Dixon Sterling were longtime rivals in the NCIC in the Northern Illinois Big 12, and they were this close to playing a playoff game this weekend had Sterling went into Coal City and picked up a win. And before that game, I asked quite a few people, I said, boy, how exciting would it be, Sterling-Dixon? It was a different mentality in Dixon. The Dukes really feel like that playoff loss last year to Coal City, they felt like that was a game that they were going to go for two at the end and try to steal a win. They were driving late in the game, fumbled, I believe, on the 5-10-yard line late in the fourth quarter. And I really believe this is a Dixon team that sort of wanted that opportunity to play Coal City again. Now, whether or not they beat Coal City, I'll have my pick coming up. I'm getting to it. But I think the Dukes were excited more so to play Coal City than they were Sterling, which is right down the road, former rivals. But I think Dixon's line up front is going to be the difference. And I know that we're going to see Coal City, I think, throw the ball a little bit more than they did last week in that win over Sterling. But, guys, I truly believe Dixon gets into the quarterfinals for the back-to-back years, which would be for the first time in school history. I think Dixon does the job Friday night. I think it'll be a fourth quarter game. But Dixon, in my opinion, I think they get out of there with a win.
I see how it is. Okay. No, I think it'll be a fantastic game. You can't go wrong picking either team. They've both played demanding schedules. They both played really good teams. You know, I don't think you could say one way or the other. Either team has much of an advantage on paper. So let's settle it on the field the way it should be.
And, you know, JT, you do have Steve Susi, though, on your side. He did pick Coal City. I was reading an article online. And, yeah, so you know what? I think it's 2 versus 2, and we'll settle on the field Friday night.
So that brings us to another one out your way, Sam. I know these two teams are all of a sudden going to be playing a lot here, and that's Byron and Dupec. They're playing for the second time this year. They'll be playing next year when Dupec joins the BNC. We did all that talk about scheduling. I want to see Byron Dupec week 1. Just welcome to the conference. And the thing about that is you could still have good games week 8, 9 if you schedule Dixon versus both of them the last 2 weeks of the year. So I want to see these two teams week 1. But before that, they got to play this playoff game, and one of their seasons are going to come to an end.
You know, guys, usually this time of year, I can usually find the next year football schedule. Haven't been able to do that so far, which tells me the schedule's not set yet. With maybe Dupec coming into the conference, they will be joining the Big Northern next year. So one of these teams, like you said, will be bounced out Saturday. The game is at Pecatonica High School. And these two teams are real no strangers to one another. As a matter of fact, earlier this year, Dupec had a halftime lead over Byron. Byron went on to win that game like 42-14. But I'm going to tell you guys, I've seen Byron twice this year play Oregon. They were night and day. When they played Oregon back in week 3, there was no Caden Considine. Guys, I saw the game last week when they put up 63 in a win over Byron. And That was only the second time in 4 years that Considine had played against Oregon. He had been injured the other years. Oh my, he is an absolute ton, and he is truly a huge difference maker for Byron. He's fast. He knows how to avoid tackles, and I think he's going to be the huge difference in Byron's game against Dupec this time.
Yeah, I think Dupec's done a nice job, continuing the excellence that their programs had in recent years, even though they lost some really key players, to graduation. But yeah, I don't. I don't see any way you don't think Byron will win this game. They beat him the first time. I do expect it'll be pretty close, though. It was pretty close the first time into the third quarter, and it tends to be. Eddie and I have talked about this a few times when teams play each other a second time. Kind of, they know the familiarity, everything kind of brings them a little bit closer together. So I don't expect a running clock or anything like that, but I don't expect Byron to be sweating too much in the fourth quarter. But maybe Dupec proves me wrong.
I'm just the way Byron's built and everything. I know that we have talked about that. It brings the games closer the second time around. We see it time and time again. I just get the feeling that Byron, with Considine back, I mean, I've said it before. He's like the best small school back in the state, and he's one of the most, I think, overlooked players on the statewide level with what he's done for this team. It's hard to say that about someone who's won like 12 state championships or whatever, but when it comes to talking with the big boys and the higher up players in the 7A 8A schools, I think he tends to get overlooked because of where he plays and what he does and that sort of thing. But I think Byron does, maybe not running clock, but I think it's a lot more lopsided this time around than it was the last time around. It's 2 second halves from the first game. I think this time around more. I just think Byron knows what happened that first time and pulls away. So that's that game. One more we wanted to touch on. If you obviously listen to our podcast, we can't get enough Fairfield coverage. We've talked Fairfield all year. So no, but Port AC Central Fairfield, we did want to talk about this one a little bit. If you didn't, that was a game that had 5 downs. Team won a game on a last second. It was a Port AC Central got an extra down due to referee mistake, kicked the field goal on 5th down, and won the game. So obviously the thing is, should there be a protest? Should the IHSA step in? And of course, IHSA bylaws don't allow that. And generally, I think that's a good move, but this is such a unique situation. I wanted to see what you guys feel like. I mean, obviously, Port AC Central, they got the win. They're moving on. Nothing's going to change, but should it have?
Yeah, I think that's a Pandora's box you don't want to open. I mean, you go saying, okay, well, it's an obvious, it was a downs thing, so we know that was a mistake. We can fix that. And then the next week, you're going to have someone coming to you with a videotape of someone stepping on a sideline. Well, it's obvious. It's on video. Well, we could correct that. And once you start down that spiral, I really think we as sports consumers have become spoiled, and as coaches and as players have become spoiled by the professional product, by the 75 4K cameras that are at every professional and college football game, floating around like probe droids from Star Wars, or Empire Strikes Back, actually, floating around like probe droids up above the stadium. And I think we're just, I think we've been spoiled by that, and we expect people to get every call right. The thing I say is, and then this is the truth, I promise you, I didn't see that game. I drive through Fairfield all the time, though. It's an awesome little town. I promise you, having not seen that game, I've covered thousands and thousands of high school sporting events in my time, and I know you guys have as well. I have yet to see a game where the referees made more mistakes than the players or coaches. And I don't say that bashing them. They're high school kids. They're high school coaches. They're all at the same level. They're all high school level sports participants. And I've yet to see a game where the officials had a worse game than the players on one, made fewer mistakes, be it fumbling the ball, stepping out of bounds, blocking the wrong assignment, doing whatever. So I know it stings bad because it's right at the end of a game, and had this call been different, there were 40 other calls that could have went the other way all through that game. There were 100 plays in that game that someone could have done something where it didn't come down to that play. I just think it's really unfair. And I know it's how people's minds work, sports fans. It's really unfair to say this is why. If you change this, yes, but there's 100 other things you could change too. And I just don't like opening up that Pandora's box.
Guys, I've put a lot of thought into this, and my first initial reaction was, you got to overturn it. You got to overturn it. You got the video. It's 2025. The technology's there. But as the week has gone on, I started to think about basketball. And how many times in a basketball game towards the end has there been a shot that was right at the brink of the clock going off and had it left the guy's hand or not? And there's no way in real time to review that. And you're right, JT, you could be opening up a big Pandora box if you start to allow schools to file protests with the IHSA. Now, the IHSA, like you said, it's in their bylaws where you can't. They had no ability to go back and look at that,
even if they wanted to.
Now, I think both schools, in watching the Fairfield kids, what they thought after was that fourth down, start to celebrate, they thought the game was over. And then all of a sudden they started to kind of put their hands up like, what's going on? And the officials didn't get it right. It happens. It's life. And I hope, though, nobody, puts those officials' names, address. Don't do that. We're better than that, because I thought both schools handled it very professional with their statements. I thought both schools handled it with class. And it's a tough situation. It's a life lesson, but the IHSA, there's not much they could do. And I put a lot of thought into that topic this week.
Yeah. And JT, you bring up a really good point about the referees. I've always, if you're complaining about referees at any level, high school, even pros, I think what you said is true. They make less mistakes than the players and the coaches. That's just a fundamental fact. Most people, I know it's everybody complains about refs. That's all sports fandom is these days, is the refs are out to get your team. It's the easiest thing to say. I honestly, when people say, you just show that you're a non-serious person to me. You're complaining about refs. You're not a serious sports fan. So I don't have to listen to anything you say. But in this situation, you did make a lot of good points, and obviously you don't want to start stuff, so I think maybe you persuaded me, but just to play devil's advocate, you could do like a one-time thing, like Gore v. Bush in the Supreme Court. Like, this ruling only applies in this specific situation. Right. Only here. This is the only thing we're doing. You could do something like that. I think, though, for all the reasons you guys listed, it may not be a bad idea, because this is something different from, like a holding call that people, it's there were 12 holding calls earlier in the game. How come you didn't take care of those? But this is different. That's subjective. You can demonstrably prove where it happened, even more than a spot. Like you bring up, and it's a good point, the foot going out of bounds and getting missed. And the other problem with that is it's at the end of the game. It's easy to fix. If it's earlier in the game, you can't fix it. It's done. It's over. Where it's the last play of the game, you have the ability to change it. And even if it was the last play of the game, you stepped out of bounds, you can't change it, because, they call him out. You don't know what the next play is going to be, because it would have started, there's just too much. Where this was, if there was ever going to be a time where you could correct an egregious type of mistake that shouldn't have happened, this would be the time that it could have been done.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I would agree with that. I would say, like I said, my larger point remains. I just think as sports fans, we've been so spoiled into thinking that officiating can be, we'll have robot umpires calling balls and strikes probably in 5 years. Next year, we'll have the helmet tap appeal. I went to a Iowa Cubs game this year and saw that in action. And it was 8 innings of teams never using it. And then in the 9th inning, pitches that were 6 inches outside called a ball. Well, what the hell? We got the challenge. We might as well use it. So that's how that's going to go. I mean, it'll change a couple calls that matter. For the most part, it won't. But we're so used to thinking that human error on the officials' part shouldn't be part of the game, but accept it from our coaches, from the players, from the people who do the lines. I've went to high school baseball games to cover them where half of the first base bag was in foul territory. not the safe running bags either.
Mm-hmm.
It's high school sports. College sports, it's pros, whatever, it's sports. Human error is just part of the equation, and I think to not expect that from officials because video exists now, I just think that's unfair.
Well, Eliminator time, guys. We all got right last week, so we're all alive. Sam, you went Polo over Hiawatha. A lot closer this time around, but Polo still pulled it off, 36-14. I think it was 22-14 at one point, I want to say, or 22-7. Yep. It was a Hiawatha did a little better, but you still get that one right. JT, check off that win, 54-7. Morris over Woodstock, and I went Byron over Oregon. That ended up 63-15. So, Sam, who you got this week?
Guys, I'm going with an old perennial, Lena Winslow. Lena Winslow at home in a playoff game against Gibson City, Melvin Sibley. Every year, Gibson City, Melvin Sibley, they're a perennial too, and they've won their fair share of state championships. So I'm not taking anything away from them, but they're making that long trip up to Lena Winslow, that new field, the new facilities they got up there. Guys, Lena Winslow, Stockton, in my opinion, are headed towards a showdown here in a couple of weeks. So I like Lena Winslow to get the win. And I was actually surprised. I double-checked like twice that I had not picked Lena Winslow at all this year. You start to get into week 10, week 11 now of the season. I think this is week 10. And no, it would be week 11. And
week 11.
Yeah, and you think, boy, how could I have not picked Lee Win at all? Well, maybe I was saving it for this point.
Yeah,
I'm in the exact same boat, Sam. Exact same boat. I had to check 3 times to make sure I hadn't picked Amboy yet this season. Amboy, Lamoille, Ohio, 8-man co-op. They'll be playing Pawnee, Lincolnwood, who dispatched Flying and Cornell Woodland last week. I'm just throwing out all the community names back. But I'll take Amboy in this one. I mean, there's a little bit, and I mean a very little bit of common opponent stuff to go on here, but I don't need it. Amboy, 2-time defending Illinois 8-man football association champions. I don't even know if they can have a playoff without Amboy being in the semifinals.
Right.
At least the semifinals. They may not even have a championship if they're not in it. So yeah, I like Amboy's chances over Pawnee in this one, and I'm definitely going with them. Eddie, how about you?
I was very pleased to see I had not picked this team yet, that I had not picked Morris in a game yet. So I am going with Morris in this one this week over Metamora. Not a lot of great options, but because Metamora is obviously really good every year. But I'm betting on Morris in this one. Probably not a normal game I would pick, but given my options, they're very limited. So I'm just picking the best team I have available to pick, and that's Morris.
And we'll talk a little bit about more of that one later, time permitting, Eddie. I know we spent some more than our fair share of time on Fairfield, Rova, or whatever. So more than we usually do most weeks. Porta, sorry. But for now, it'd be a great time to take a break, I think. And thanks, Sam, for being with us.
Thanks, guys. Hope to see you next week.
Sounds great, man.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton in Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart is our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
Eddie, we left off Metamora Morris. I think that's a great place to pick up here. Kind of your Eliminator pick, which I'll be honest, surprised me. Kind of being down here, possibly geographically right in between Morris and Metamora. when I think very good 4A nowadays, but when I think really good 5A-ish football, those are two of the first programs that come to my mind are Metamora and Morris. And so, but that being said, I think Morris definite favorite, but a really interesting matchup here. I think, Metamora has been impressive since some early season struggles, including getting shut out by Washington this year. But last week they've kind of bounced back. They beat South Shore International 62-14 last week in that first round playoff game in 4A. And Morris, other than week 9 against a out-of-state team, they've just been impressive. There's been no bouncing back, really. I guess you could say last week 54-7 over Woodstock, but they haven't really needed to bounce back all year. Morris has just been darn good, Eddie. So, how do you see this one playing out? I only found one common opponent on a quick look, and that was Metamora beat LaSalle Peru 32-20 way back in week 2. Mid-season in that Interstate 8 schedule, Morris shut out LP 48-0. So, how do you see this one playing out? Obviously, you like Morris.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, it's the resume. I mean, what Morris has done this year. I mean, the Interstate 8's not a bad conference. You see Kaneland still alive, a number of teams that made the playoffs, even, a team like LaSalle that didn't make the playoffs, played literally everybody close, gave Kaneland a heart attack, gave Sycamore a heart attack, played close against this Metamora club, it was 32-20. So, I mean, Morris is just putting everybody away. So they seem to be on a mission. They're balanced on both sides of the ball. It's really weird to look at a team and not, is this an offensive team? Is this a defensive team? What they are. This team can get you either way. If you want to go low scoring, I think their defense is good for that. If you want to do a shootout, like Peoria would, they can handle that too. So the way they have taken care of teams this year and just rolled over everybody, the common opponent of LaSalle Peru is the perfect example of that. LaSalle, like I said, LaSalle Peru played all these teams close and they crushed them 48-0. So that's why I think, it won't be a blowout by any stretch. It'll, be a close game. I don't see it being more than probably 2 scores, I would think, but it's going to be a good one. But I think Morris comes out because they just seem to be on a mission this year.
Yeah, and winner of this one gets Geneseo or Macomb. I think Macomb would probably be the favorite there, but either way, how fun would it be to have a Morris Geneseo, or for that matter, a Metamora Geneseo, quarterfinal playoff game in 4A. Talk about just teams that are always there in the playoffs.
We should point out for a second that Geneseo Rochelle game last week was excellent. Geneseo only needed 4 downs to kick their field goal to win the game against Rochelle. I mean, obviously, I thought Rochelle was a team of destiny type thing, but man, Geneseo, it's good to see them, a perennial team go into that bigger conference, kind of struggle for a little bit, find their footing, and now win a playoff game. So it's nice to see them, and we'll see what they do against Macomb. But yeah, no, that's going to be a good one either way. Whatever combination of those 4 teams it is next week is going to be fun.
And our other remaining I-8 team, since Rochelle is out, Ottawa and LP didn't make it. Sycamore lost. So we have Kaneland at Belvidere North, Eddie. I know you seemed, I don't know if this is I don't know if, tell me if I'm reading you wrong here. You seemed maybe pleasantly surprised that Steve Susi kind of maybe likes Kaneland in this one.
I actually was, because I don't have very good memory, and I just remember last year, like in my mind, it was that Kaneland got blown out because I remember they gave up Ben Boucher. I don't know if it's Boucher or Boucher. I apologize. I believe it's Boucher. I mean, I believe he's also, if I'm remembering right, Derek Schneeman, former coach or coach at DeKalb, former coach down your way at, which one was he at?
Fieldcrest.
I think it's his nephew, I want to say. Run back for Belvidere North. 4 touches, 4 touchdowns, 42, 22, 33, and 60 yards. Plus, there was I didn't write his name down, but there was a second kid who on the same play got a 35-yard touchdown run. It just sweeps around the left side. But it was a 35-20 game. Those were the only touchdowns, and Kaneland was scoring. So it was a much closer game. Kaneland's offense this year is a lot better than last year. Both those running backs are back this year for Belvidere North. Kaneland has so much back, plus they added Jalen Carter, a quarterback. So, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, after I saw the score last year, I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe has a chance. And so I asked Suze, I'm like, well, which one are you picking? What's the official FND pick? Because I wanted to make sure. I figured he was going Belvidere North because they're undefeated. They're having a great year. They won the Nick 10 outright for the first time. So I'm like, who are you picking? You told me Kaneland. So yes, I was pleasantly surprised in that one. This is the one I'm going to be at Friday night. But I think Kaneland, if they can keep those running backs, maybe, no one play touchdown drives, no, 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown runs, or at least less 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown runs. They can match him. Carter Grabowski at running back has gotten a lot better this year than he was last year. Solid year last year, even better this year. 1,000 yards. Jalen Carter, I don't know where his total rushing yards at, but he's got to be up over 500. But obviously, throw the ball pretty well. He did have 2 interceptions last week against Lakes. They didn't really prove costly in the blowout, but he gets those under control. You limit, maybe not eliminate, but limit the big plays. And I kind of like Kaneland getting past this one. I mean, Cary Grove probably lurking for him in the next one, which that's not great for them, but you worry about that next week.
Just getting there, right? And yeah, Belvidere North plays in that Nick 10 conference. They were a 6A quarterfinalist last year, I believe. I think I can kind of see what Seuss is seeing there, just kind of looking at their scores through the season. When Belvidere North played good teams, they've been close games, and even some of their games against teams that didn't finish with such great records kind of ended up close. I mean, they beat Freeport 21-0. That's a Freeport team that ended up with 3 wins. They beat Belvidere, which ended up with 4 wins, 37-20. They beat a
Hononegah.
Thank you. A Hononegah team that just barely snuck into the playoffs, 27-24. And even last week's playoff win, 49-20 is a pretty lopsided score. They played Bulls Academy, which I didn't even know played football. That was a new one on me in the opening round of the playoffs. So I can kind of see where that goes. But yeah, I also was surprised seeing when you put that in your notes and that Seuss picked that. I went and double checked it. I was like, man, maybe Eddie read that wrong. But yeah, I think Seuss sees something maybe in that schedule and those scores of the opponents they played. And, I think he thinks the Knights have a good chance here.
Yeah, that's the problem with the closed conferences like the Nick 10 is you don't get a sense of how you'll do against another team. So trying to figure out where Kaneland would fall in the Nick 10. Would they be top? Would they be middle? Trying to figure that out becomes tricky. But the one thing about the close scores is obviously the one thing it says is that Belvidere North can win close games and they know how to win. That's the flip side of that. Now, granted, you probably would rather be rolling over everybody 48-0, but
hey, you're 10-0, you know how to win. So, you know what we'll do? Let's hit one more quick before I get to my main event down in my area. Was down in Class 1A. Clifton Central's 9-1, visiting Dwight 7-3. Eddie, I mean, we said at the beginning, Dwight. We had our doubts in the middle of the season. They had that 3-game losing streak to future playoff teams. But here's Dwight. They're a 12 seed again. They're in the second round again, and they get a second round home game because they're a 12 seed. Didn't get one in the first round against a team that only has 1 loss. Here's something that, had I not sent you this in the notes, I don't think you'd expect it. Dwight went something like 40 years without a playoff win or something like that. Had never been to the third round in their school's long history, all that. Clifton Central in the playoffs every year, Clifton Central hasn't won a playoff game until last week. Before last week, Clifton Central had not won a playoff game since 2019. Meanwhile, Dwight had 2 wins just last year. So Dwight comes in with 3 wins over the past 2 years in the playoffs, and Clifton Central with 1. I don't think that's a lot of people would expect that.
This one I almost went with my eliminator pick. I almost went Clifton Central over Dwight. I was looking at it, but then I thought, Dwight is surging. Dwight is at home. So do I really want to put my eggs in a team that I barely know anything about, or do I want to put my eggs in the Morris basket? So that's why I ended up going with Morris. But how do you see this one playing out? I'm curious. I feel like, probably it's like on paper, Clifton Central's probably like a big favorite, but it seems like Dwight, you probably don't want to count him out, I would think. Yeah,
I don't know. I know our official Friday night drive pick is indeed Clifton Central, which I think is a smart pick. I'm not counting out Dwight, man. This is 2 years. They did this last year. I covered their second round game, which they won in a thriller. really neat scenario that turned out it was unintentional by Dwight coach Luke Standiford, where he took a delay a game, called his team over to the sideline. He thought the clock was stopped. He thought he had a timeout, or that a timeout was on the field. But what it in essence did was allowed them to call a couple plays, stop the clock for them, where it would have been running that whole time. Instead of being at the 2, they were at the 7 or something like that. They end up scoring. It was a genius. I asked him afterwards, I basically started it with, man, what a great decision. He's like, is that what happened? But worked out fantastic. One of those things like where Belichick would take like have guys start in motion early, even though that, why does that make sense? Then you realize he ran off like 3 minutes of game clock by taking 10 yards and penalties. And it's like, oh, he's a genius. Kind of one of those situations. But anyway, man, Dwight, it feels the same. they had all 3 of their losses came in 3 consecutive weeks to 3 teams that went to the playoffs. 2 of them are not 1A teams. They're, 2A and above. I don't want any part of this one. And if I'm Clifton Central, I don't want any part of going to Dwight and playing this team in the second round. So I think Dwight could really give them some troubles. Clifton Central has a great quarterback, Brady Shuley. I think he just last week set single season records for Clifton Central for passing yards and passing touchdowns. So I think Dwight's going to have their hands full, but I think Clifton Central will have their hands full too.
I don't know if it's an upset, but it's upset coded. Definitely. Definitely has the feel of an upset. Which leaves us with one more game we wanted to get to. There were 2 kind of outside of my field of expertise I was really interested in this week. Obviously, we talked about Dixon earlier, but the other one that's kind of interesting to me, and we've been talking a lot more and more about Seneca this year, is this Wilmington-Seneca one.
Yeah, Wilmington 9-1, Seneca 10-0. These teams met twice in the 2023 season. Seneca beat Wilmington in, I think it was week 1. I mean week 2, but I think it was the season opener. And then they meet again in the quarterfinals, and Wilmington beats them in overtime, gets a field goal at the end of regulation, wins it in overtime. Wilmington goes on. It's the closest game they played on their way to a state championship. So, if you're Seneca, you're sitting like, man, that could have been us. They get another shot here on their home field. Wilmington, that one loss they have was to Morris in week 1. Probably made them a better football team, but it also makes them go to Seneca for this one. Otherwise, it probably would have been flipped. But we have a combined 19-game winning streak going here, Eddie. These are 2 very good teams that are playing very good football. Brian Hoxie will be covering this one for anyone who wants to follow along, read our story on Friday Night Drive on Saturday night. I think you got to think Wilmington's the favorite here. They've kind of been winning more impressively. Seneca actually maybe stubbed their toes a little bit last week against Port Byron Riverdale. That was the game I was at. It ended up 35-21. It maybe wasn't as close as that score indicates. Seneca had almost a 2-to-1 ratio in yards gained. I think first downs were 24-8. I mean, Seneca was going up and down the field, but it seemed like anytime they needed to make a play or needed to hold on to the ball, they weren't able to. I would like to think that maybe they got that out of their system and they play a cleaner game against Wilmington. If they do, this one could come down. And another fun fact for everyone, these 2 teams combined last week for 0 passing attempts. So won't expect them to air it out. I'm sure they'll both take a shot this week, though, trying to catch the other off guard. But I wouldn't count on a lot of passing.
Okay, you have me riddled with anxiety or PTSD because I thought you were about to make a 6-7 joke. I really thought you were about to make a 6-7 joke. I was just, oh, Lord. Can we have the loser of the Wilmington Seneca game play the loser of the Dixon Coal City game? That would be one of the best games next week, I would say.
Well, Wilmington Coal City didn't end up fantastic when they played in week 9.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so who knows? But yeah,
never mind. We're drawn. Sorry.
But yeah, I think this one, I think Wilmington's, the smart money, and I think that's the official Friday Night Drive pick. But I don't think anyone would be stunned the way Seneca plays. That just 2 run-heavy offenses, 2 very physical offensive and defensive line led squads. 2 very well coached teams. I know they have all the respect in the world for each other, and I think they'll earn more respect Saturday.
Yeah, if everything falls right, you can see Seneca maybe winning, but I'm with you guys on this one. It's probably Wilmington. So I think that's a podcast. You anywhere this week?
I am, but nowhere we talked about. I'm helping out our cohort Josh Welge. I'm going down to Peoria, covering Montini at Peoria Notre Dame, which I'm hoping is a good one. Two teams I've never covered on a football field before, playing at Peoria Richwoods. I've never covered a game there either. So lots of new for me. You don't get a lot of that deep into a career, so I'm excited for it. How about you, Eddie?
Well, I'll be Friday. I'll be up at the Kaneland Belvidere North game for the second year in a row. I swear, it's like in my brain, it just seemed like it was a blowout and like they got curb stomped, but it was, only 35-20, like I said. So this year, I'm really excited for this one. We'll see how that ends up turning out. Obviously, you can find out how everything turns out following us along on our Twitter, but more importantly, go to FridayNightDrive.com for previews, game stories, photo galleries. I'm probably leaving out hundreds of things. Anything Seuss wrote. By the way, great. The 5-6A for that. What was that? The plan for the district plan. Those went up. Those are on the site now. Those mock-ups for if that ends up getting passed, which obviously it won't, but I can still dream. So that's something to look at. FridayNightDrive.com. Definitely worth your time. So,
and one other plug, our YouTube channel will have highlights Friday, Saturday, filled with highlights from us being on the sideline. So also something worth checking out. I know during the regular season on our Friday Night Live cast on our websites, you can catch all those in one place. You still can. The one place is our YouTube channel.
Yeah, they're going to dock my pay for not bringing that up. I apologize. So he's JT Pedelty. I was Eddie Carifio. Enjoy the week 2 of the playoff, guys.